Good afternoon, everyone. I stand on all protocols that were established. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you today to this discussion on real estate market opportunities in Guyana. My name is Delmar Walcott. I am the Managing Director of Pinnacle Inc., which is a local real estate firm, and we also do logistics as well. As you all know, Guyana is undergoing an economic transformation driven primarily by sectors such as oil and gas, infrastructure development, and agriculture. This growth is creating new and exciting opportunities in the real estate market, and we will try and do our best today to explore that. Our discussion today aims to provide a comprehensive overview of the real estate market opportunities in Guyana. Given the country's rapid economic growth, the real estate market is expanding in ways that creates unique opportunities for both local and international investors. So we're going to explore a couple of topics today, which are the current demand drivers and sectors that present the greatest opportunity for growth, how government policies, particularly those tied to infrastructure projects and housing initiatives, are shaping the market, the impact of foreign investment, and how both local and international players can leverage this opportunity, the role of technology and urbanization, and how they are transforming the way real estate transactions are conducted and developed. We will also explore challenges such as financing, legal framework, and the availability of land for development. The rise of sustainable development and climate resilience as key factors in new real estate projects, regional opportunities outside of Georgetown, and untapped sectors such as tourism, hospitality, and commercial real estate. And finally, we will look at how the diaspora and new market entrants can capitalize on evolving real estate landscape. By the end of today's session, we aim to provide you with actionable insights that will help you better understand and navigate the diverse opportunity Guyana real estate market has to offer. Before we delve into the discussion this afternoon, I'd like to start by giving our panelists a chance to introduce themselves. We are quite fortunate this afternoon to have experts in the field, and each of them brings a unique perspective on the opportunities in real estate and in general and real estate in Guyana. Panelists, could you each please take a moment to introduce yourself, and please feel free to share a little about your current role and your background, which makes you quite suitable for this afternoon's panel discussion.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shawn Gurcharran, currently the CEO of a local bank here in Guyana called the Guyana Bank for Trade and Industry. My background is really finance and banking for a number of years, and I hope my contributions this afternoon will be helpful as you make your investment decisions about destination Guyana.
Thank you, Shawn.
Good afternoon. Stefan here from Keller, Guyana. Local real estate agent, 12 years in the industry, representing the Keller Williams franchise, the largest real estate brokerage in the world, here in Guyana for about 3 years now. I hope I can give you some insights as to where the market is, where it's going, and how you can structure your investments.
Hi everybody, this is Sarimsakci. I'm the CEO of Alterra worldwide. We are a real estate developer and contractor, general contractor. And we execute projects in different parts of the world. And it's a privilege for me to be here at Guyana talking to you today. So thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. All right. get into the discussion. So my first question is going to be directed to Shawn. And if the other panelists feel the need and they feel that they can contribute, feel free. So, Shawn, what are the primary factors driving demand for real estate in Guyana right now? Is it being led primarily by local buyers, expatriates, or foreign investors? Right, those are two questions there. And the third question in this question, how is this impacting the ability of both residential and commercial properties?
All right, thank you. First of all, thanks guys for sticking around. I know we stand between you and the closing ceremony, or as we were talking earlier, we stand between you and drinks. So we do appreciate you being the faithful remnant. Having said that though, and I'm certain you've heard it quite a bit in the last day or two in terms of where Guyana is and what's happening, but the primary driver has to be the oil and gas sector and everything else that is associated with that in terms of an increased population, increased distribution of wealth, and just the whole availability of disposable income. Yes, that is true, but secondary is also a social change where, like in any third world developing country, most persons as they get married, they remained with their families and you had extended families dwelling together. That has changed now as younger persons are leaving home, going off on their own, getting their homes, starting their own families separately. Yes, that is a secondary factor. It might not be as significant as what's happening on the oil and gas side, but those are two key factors. To go back to the oil and gas for a moment, with the persons coming in, with the increased income available, you're seeing more and more persons wanting a better quality of housing. There is a greater demand for things like apartments, condominiums. We've seen generally an elevation in the price of real estate. Properties that 5 years ago were hard to sell are being sold even before it gets listed. In terms of where the demand is coming from, in 2023, the split between commercial and residential was 35-65, favoring residential. Last year, that moved to 31-6-9. But it's showing you there's a gradual shift towards commercial, but still significantly more on the residential side. Based on some reports I was reading earlier today, that is anticipated to slow down. And then it's interesting to see how that space will play out. One of the caveats I think that we need to understand is, yes, Guyana has established oil and gas reserves, and we know what that is, but we can't ignore the fact that oil exploration is still continuing. What does that mean for the real estate market? To be quite honest, it's difficult to tell, because what we are seeing is unheralded. We're not sure. We know it's going to continue to appreciate. On average, prices have appreciated 10-12% year on year for the last 3 to 4 years. We expect that to continue. We expect to see a shift more in commercial real estate development. There are some challenges, and I'm certain we'll talk about it as we go on. How is this impacting the availability? I think we're still okay in terms of demand and supply, but we have to bear in mind, as I said earlier, oil exploration is still going on, and everything else is growing along with it. I think we will experience a period where demand will outstrip supply, but I don't think we're there yet. I still think we're in that phase where we're heading in that direction.
All right. Thank you very much, Shawn. Stefan, can you address this question? What are some of the key areas or sectors in Guyana's real estate market that presents the most significant opportunities for investment and growth? How is the country's economic development influencing the demand for residential and commercial properties? I know Shawn touched a little bit on it, but from your standpoint, being a real estate broker, what areas are you seeing that there's greatest opportunities for investment and growth?
Shawn touched on a lot.
Yeah, he did.
Residential. Residential, I would say, is paramount right now in the driving demand with FDI, foreign direct investment. Anyone that's coming here, it is a safe investment in terms of risk-reward ratio, and it's needed amongst most, if not all, of the industries that are operating here, coming to operate here, having contracts, bringing staff, bringing workers. Residential is paramount. Commercial, as Shawn said, is creeping up slowly behind it. There is a high growing demand for industrial parks, warehousing, industrial land for piping services in the oil and gas, etc. And I believe there is a shift. Shawn has his statistics, but in my industry, I know there's a shift slowly gravitating from residential into the commercial aspect across the country. Residential is more pushing towards the Georgetown, the East Bank region, and that commercial aspect is growing now. Linden, Berbice, the demand, the requests that we see on a daily basis are from areas that we didn't expect persons to want to expand to this quickly in the exploration stage that Guyana is going through. But yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Stefan. All right. Now from Mike. Now Mike is not Guyanese, and Mike's company is, if you can correct me, is in the United States and in Turkey. Mike, so you're coming with an international perspective. So, and you've been in the industry for quite some time. So my question to you is this. Guyana's oil industry has certainly boosted the economy. Looking forward, how would you see the real estate market evolving here in the next 5 to 10 years in light of this boom? And will it continue to grow, or are there risks of overdevelopment in certain areas?
So, being from the United States and Turkey, and having executed projects in different parts of the world, I think we've seen this before.
The mic?
Can you guys hear me? Better? Okay. So, I live in Azerbaijan, I live in Saudi Arabia, and I visited Qatar quite often. I've been to UAE many times, so I've seen how they develop, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, as far as the drivers for real estate commercial development here, if you look at a certain class, let's talk about the office, I think that's going to be driven by international companies that are coming here that are servicing oil and gas industry. And it's not just oil and gas industry's primary companies, but probably lawyers, accountants. That's going to bring more players to the table for your class A office space. And I've seen it in different markets in Moscow region in the early 90s and early 2000s. So they really demand that. But that's really limited, right? After a while, they're going to be here and that's going to stop. So you need other demand drivers if you want to continue to develop your country. Who am I to say how to develop, right? I can only give you my experience, right? So I think Dubai has done a phenomenal job by bringing in different industries and incentivizing those industries as the government, right? And then that continues to drive business there. To give you an example, you have physical amazing location here in Guyana, Suriname for that matter. Deep port, everybody talks about deep port, I think that's a fantastic idea. But I'm going to say you should not put any limitations on your imagination. And what I mean by that, why not go talk to Elon Musk as the government of Guyana and tell them, hey, why don't you have a spaceport in Guyana? Why? Because French Guyana has a spaceport for European satellites. Can you imagine what would happen here? That is a resilient and continuous development of that services. That's what's going to sustain after oil boom is gone. you need something permanent for the next 40, 50 years, you're going to have that. So the port is great, but what 10, 15 years from now, when you go back, you don't want to say, well, I wish I would have done that as the country, right? Because Elon Musk, if you look at his beef right now with us in the United States, he can't launch his satellites fast enough. He can't launch his vehicles fast enough. And if you guys give him these resources, he'll be here tomorrow. And then you're talking about meaningful, continuous development in all the sectors, including real estate.
Understood. Thank you very much, Mike. Guys, please make notes so that at the end of, towards the end, you can ask your questions. All right? So my next question is one of a financial nature. So obviously, you know who will be answering that question. Shawn, what financing options are currently available for developers and investors looking to enter the market? Are banks and financial institutions in Guyana offering competitive rates? And how accessible are these resources for both local and foreign investors? I think this question, be careful how you answer, I think this question is going to spur a lot of questions from the audience later on.
Sure. And that's why I'm happy I have some backup in the audience. Just a shout out to the GBTI team, Priya, Devon, and Abdul. They're there to answer all the difficult questions that I can't handle. But yes, thanks for that again. Like in most countries, the banking sector in Guyana is pretty conservative in many ways, and it has served us well over a number of decades. Back in 2008, when we had the financial crisis, we didn't lose a single financial institution except CLICO, which was not necessarily local. So that, to say that the industry was conservative, it has served us well for a number of years. In terms of options available, we have financed through the entire spectrum of what is happening in real estate, from the developers right to the persons who are purchasing the homes for a development. We finance mortgages, we do overdrafts, we do term financing, whatever your need is, we are flexible enough in the industry locally to finance it. We have worked with partners that are both local and overseas, and every client is different. Being a local bank and indigenous to Guyana, we have accepted that flexibility is a must in terms of when we want to work with people. I know sometimes banks can be labeled to be very rigid, but we have adopted an approach where we listen first and then we try to make the financing work based on the business model being presented to us. So like I always tell people, come in, let's have a chat, let's see how we can make it work. So typically we do mortgages, as I said, we do for companies, we can do lines of credit, we do overdrafts, term loans, depending on what the project is. Are we offering competitive rates? Based on the Bank in Guyana stats, the prime rate in Guyana is around 8%, which says if you have all your ducks lined up, your financials are looking good, your plan is good, you can attract a rate of 8%. From what I know, that rate can go lower, and it can also go higher based, again, on the status of the borrower that's coming in and talking to the banks. Is it competitive? I believe it is. When we look at Guyana, when we look at all the factors that we're facing, we are still in some ways a third world country that has certain inefficiencies that we are plagued by. I know as we come along later, we'll talk a little bit about the judiciary and the setup and how that affects lending. 8%, some might say it might be difficult, but I will qualify that by saying if you have a real estate project that you're doing and you successfully see it to completion, at the completion point, you can add at least a margin of 25 to 30%, and my friend will sell it to you within a matter of days. So yes, I think it's competitive. I think resources are very accessible. In Guyana currently, the loan to deposit ratio is at around just 60%. Most banks would love to get that to around 75, 80%. So there is capacity for banks to lend, and most banks are ready and willing to do so.
All right. All right, thank you very much, Shawn. So, Stefan, now that we have the financing part out of the way, so can you shed some light on developing a real estate portfolio? So for investors looking to build a diverse portfolio in Guyana, what mix of property types, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, would you recommend to hedge against risk and capitalize on various growth sectors?
All right, so when looking to invest in real estate in Guyana, you want to measure risk-reward ratio, and I push persons to the residential first. I push them to the commercial section second, and then we diverse into the ecotourism, which is a growing market in Guyana. Untapped should be looked at tremendously, and then hospitality sector after. I would put it 40% residential, 25% commercial, and then you could dive into the other factors. As I mentioned before, there's a growing need for a logistics hub for whether it's land in an industrial zone area or it's warehousing. There's a growing need for it right now. I think there are, as of today, 3 RFIs that went out for warehousing alone from 3 known oil and gas companies that are struggling to rent and acquire warehousing. I was speaking with my team in our morning huddle this week. We recently, I'll give you an example, we recently rented a 50,000 square foot warehouse to a known distributor in the country, and a week after they came for 20,000 square foot. I can't find it. So there's a growing need for it, residential, commercial, and then you can dive into that.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Stefan. Mike, from the international perspective, foreign investment is critical in driving Guyana's real estate. What role are international investors playing in the market? And how does this impact local businesses and developers? All right? What role are international investors playing in the market, and how does this impact local businesses and developers? Are there specific, regulations or incentives that should be put in place to attract foreign investors?
Right. So I think the ones that I've seen successful from other parts of the world are pre-designated areas by the government. Master plan is already done. Environmental impact report is already done. It's almost, in a sense, shovel ready, where I have to just come, present my plans, get the building department to approve my construction documents, and then build it. Now, when it comes to fees and incentives, I think that's what economics, right? We believe in transparency. And us being here, we have inherent risk of being in a different country. We have some expectations. One thing that I think our Guyanese friends needs to avoid is to penalize the developers upfront from coming here by high development fees. Having said that, those development fees can be added to a yearly payment instead of one big upfront payment, for example. So the rules and regulations for us also, property rights has to be very clear. The title of the land that we may be getting has to be really clear. And myself and or other developers have made our with public-private partnership. We've seen a very successful model where governments give the land to a developer, and what we call is we get into a development and discussion agreement with clear expectations from the government saying, in 1 year you have to finish the plans, in 2 years you have to build it, if you don't, I'll take the land back, for example, right? So you know they're going to perform for the international investors. Of course, when the international investors comes in, they're going to bring an outside investor group and banks. So they are creating additional resources, capital resources for you. They're also going to bring you a different way of looking at projects from their previous experiences, whether it's a mixed use, whether it's branded residences, because you might think that a luxury brand might not be ready here, but we think it is. Because by the time we start talking and I produce it, it's going to take 2-3 years. So we're going to be there already. And then for the local banks, they don't have to necessarily put the whole capital, but it'll be good if they can put maybe like 10-20% of the total capital stack, and the rest is equity from the owner, like us from the developer, and maybe 60-70% comes from outside banks. So that means we believe in the project as the developer. International investment banks lives in your country, and you, as the locals, you believe in because your bank, local banks are participating in that capital stack.
All right, I hear you. From the banker, what is your perspective on that format that Mike just proposed in terms of the local banks putting only a smaller percentage, and then a foreign bank looking to invest? Is it a possibility that the local banks can entirely finance? How does that work?
The model that Mike talked about, I think any local bank would jump at it. But what we found, and pardon the frankness, is sometimes you have foreign investors come in and they approach the local banks as a group that perhaps doesn't know what they're about, I'll be very honest. And they come to do projects with absolutely no equity. They will come with a name and says, oh, this is who I am, I'm from where I am, just go ahead, give me the money. But no, that's not how it works. Whilst we are a third world country, our regulations are quite good. As I mentioned earlier, our appetite is quite conservative, and it has done us well in the past. Having said that, though, any project we would like to see equity from the developers. We've had bad experiences in the country where persons have abandoned projects and the banks have been left holding an incomplete, underdeveloped project and, of course, trying to recover their investment. So yes, any model where you have a decent amount of equity, and the amounts you've suggested is quite decent, would really go a long way in helping pushing that product forward. Typically, locally, we look at a loan to value anywhere between 60 to 70%, and that's where the space we're comfortable with it playing.
Yes, I think that's, we're talking about the same approach.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you guys. All right, Shawn, could you discuss the legal and regulatory framework for real estate transaction in Guyana?
Sure.
And how easy is it for investors, both local and foreign, to acquire property? And what safeguards or protections are in place to ensure smooth transactions?
Right, so one of the impediments to the real estate sector, to be very honest, has been the framework that governs the legal side of things. Currently, there are two ways property transactions are handled. We still have a deeds registry as well as a land registry, depending on whether it's a title or a transport. And that in itself can be a bit of confusion and a bit of ping pong in terms of understanding who has oversight over what. That's one, so that's a challenge. Secondly, the systems are still very, very manual. We don't have a digital registry as yet. You can't go to any registry online and look up a property and understand what are the implications, who has a charge in it, who has a lien in it. There's no history. So having said that, the system is very manual still, and that needs some work. I know the government has plans to modernize that, and everybody is eagerly anticipating that. Our Roman Dutch system does have adequate protections and provisions to protect both sides of the equation in terms of the buyer as well as the seller. You need a good lawyer, no question about it. It's an investment, it's your investment. You may hear of shortcuts, but our recommendation is always get an expert to help you walk through the process. Assume nothing, trust, and verify. The other part of it is how easy it is to acquire property. It's very easy. Again, but get your experts involved, get lawyers involved, get your finances involved. There is no real barrier in terms of whether you're local or foreign to acquire property. If you're a foreigner, however, looking to acquire financing, we require approval from the Ministry of Finance. Foreigners are not allowed to unless you get specific permission from the Minister of Finance. Time-wise, we'd love to see the cycle between an agreement of sale and transfer perhaps be anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks. We are seeing it take sometimes as long as 3 to 6 months. They are the ones that get done within a month, but just because of the manual nature of what it is, it just takes a little bit longer than we want, especially when you have to advertise a mortgage or execute the debenture. It adds to the timelines from time to time. So the market is far from efficient, but what is happening, the gains that persons are experiencing in both terms of capital appreciation for investment is offsetting the timing that you're losing. I think I've answered anything. Yeah, the safeguards and protections, again, get proper advisors, do your verification. One of the things we do at the bank is we always make a check. There have been some crazy stories out there that you lose your property and you didn't even know. Historically, persons in Guyana, especially maybe in the far-flung areas, have not been the best custodials of their documents. And because of what's happening, there's been a mad grab for land and people wanting to sell. So it's always important that those documentations are in order. You see your title, you see your transport, and you employ necessary safeguards to ensure that your transaction gets executed efficiently.
All right, thank you. Any other of the panelists want to add anything to that? All right, Stefan. Question to you. Now, this has to do with technological adoption, in real estate transactions. Technology is changing the way real estate transactions are conducted globally. In Guyana, embracing new technologies such as digital platforms for property listings, virtual tours, or blockchain for secure transactions, how is this improving market transparency and efficiency?
First, I push for technology in the real estate industry. I think I can see 4 persons in this room here that are focused on technology in the real estate industry. As a representative of Keller, Guyana, we are a technology company. A technology-focused company. We have a proprietary command system, which is a CRM system built by our firm for real estate agents to streamline the sales process, the listing process. I know my friend here has developed a software that helps your KYC, your know your customer, which helps us to present those to the regulatory bodies like banks, etc. We are in the last stage of development of an MLS system for Guyana, which helps to streamline listings and properties for a general person to know what's out there. But to answer your question, technology plays a really important part for real estate in Guyana. I would like to see more digital platforms for properties. I would love to see the regulatory bodies push the digitization of the documentation, the legal documentation that's needed to verify property ownership. It will help the process of sales, verification for sales, and access to financing much faster, giving a faster turnaround, faster development, and it will help the industry tremendously.
All right, thank you very much. Quite succinctly and well put. Mike, which environmental, okay, so this question is about sustainable development, right? So which environmental concerns, on the rise globally, how is sustainability being integrated into Guyana's real estate projects? Or how should it be integrated into Guyana's real estate project? All right? Are there any notable examples that you can think of in terms of eco-friendly or green development in your experience? And how can investors benefit from patronizing sustainability?
Right, so I'm going to approach this from a little bit different perspective. What is the population of Guyana?
750,000.
750. What's the population of China?
3 billion.
3 billion.
1.5 billion?
Yeah, 1.5 billion, sorry.
What is the population of India?
About
1.5 billion.
no, that's
So
about 2.
what is in your shoulders to be
Yeah, they live so fast.
concerned about if a building needs to be net zero, this and that? How much Amazon you have in your lab?
Yeah.
You're already net 0, right? I'm not going to lecture you need to do this or do that, because you're already far advanced.
Yeah.
You should not let anybody dictate you what you can and cannot do in your country. Your responsibility is to provide housing to your population, right? To have everybody get their basic needs covered, and you got to do whatever you got to do. Now, if the market demands that product, then I will do it for, Chevron or Exxon. If the Exxon comes and says, hey, Mark, we want to do this power in Georgetown, we want it to be net zero. Fine, pay me out and I'll do it. It should be market driven. So maybe I'm too blunt, but 750,000 people, you already have Amazon behind you, right? You're already net zero. I would say don't bother with this stuff right now. Now let the market. Maybe I'm too blunt.
I wasn't expecting that answer, but thank you very much, Mike. That is quite a different
I'm just
perspective.
being honest, right?
And we appreciate that honesty. But that's quite a different perspective. You're not, I can say you're not being in any way, shape, or form political. Right? Non-political.
Well, to me, like, let's, I mean, the technologies we use in our buildings, like we use the state-of-the-art HVAC system, we use the state-of-the-art electrical system. The way that we deliver the product is there already, right? And then if you want anything extra on top of it, like how can you have a skyscraper net zero? I mean, you're going to put solar panel on top on a small area and you're going to claim it net zero? You can't do that. You know what I mean?
But okay, so I hear what you're saying, but in terms of technological advancements, right? So to help us to be good citizens of the world, don't you think that that should come into play?
If you cut down the Amazon forest, all of the first stuff, right? You guys done your part.
Yeah.
You've done your part all these decades. Now it's your turn. It's your turn to do what's good for your country. You cannot anything shackle you. For development. Now you're going to be like when you have wastewater, you have to have tertiary, cleanup. It has to be clean water on your waste treatment plants. Your water needs to be safe. Those are all separate things, right?
Yeah.
But do not burden development, right? If you want to charge a developer a clean fee, that's fine.
All right. I hear what you say. That brings me into my next question, right? And this is a toss-up, anyone can answer, right? So Guyana is experiencing increased urbanization, right? Particularly in Georgetown, and on the outskirts of Georgetown. What impact does urbanization have on real estate opportunities? Do you believe that the implementation of smart cities, right, or smart city initiatives, or digital solutions, do you think that this will create new possibilities of effectively addressing the issues of increased urbanization?
It's a good question. I know the government has announced plans to develop a smart city called Silica City on the highway somewhere. If we had mentioned that vision 10 years ago, it would have been frowned at and said, you're outrageous. But going back to what my friend was saying, those areas are now no longer as far as we think they are. With a rapidly expanding road network, like where I live, the Hero Highway passes through. It has significantly transformed and opened up a whole lot of lands. Using smart cities, I believe, has a role. And for sure, there will be a section of the population that will be attracted to such initiatives. But currently, I'm trying to remember what the last statistics were in terms of the central housing, in terms of where they are in terms of a backlog of homes for regular citizens. I know the government is trying to push out, what, is it 10,000 house lots every year? Yeah, 10,000 house lots every year. And as they push out 10,000, they get 20,000 in new applications. Is it the right time for us to do smart cities? Yes, to cater for certain sections of the expat population, perhaps, and some of the locals who may want to. But I also think we have to remember we have to ensure that there is housing available for the rest of our citizens and at a rate and reachable that they can afford it.
All right. Stefan, Mike, your views on this question as to whether we need to have a smart city initiative or smart city approach to the increased urbanization in our city center.
I think there's always need for a smart city in every part of the country, but you shouldn't prioritize over, for example, the need for an expansion of middle income or affordable homes for the growing middle income sector. Entrepreneurs who are targeting those expats and trying to compete with persons who are coming here looking for investment, etc. But yeah, why not? Smart city life.
I think, so in 2009, I was in Saudi Arabia. I wasn't involved in Medina al City, which was a decree by the king, His Excellency King Faisal. And it was all like smart city at that time. It was visionary, but they had already taken care of their people.
Right.
The regular housing for their people, workforce housing for their people, social housing for our people were taken care of before they took that initiative. So I think everybody's in the same boat with that.
Yeah.
I think the priority should be on taking care of your population, whether it's through social housing, affordable housing, or providing them, government subsidized ownership of housing. And I think that would definitely, be the next thing.
Okay. All right. I hear what you guys are saying clearly. If I can add my 2 cents to it, smart cities. Well, if in the case of Georgetown becoming more urbanized, I agree with Shawn and Stefan that smart cities would be necessary, especially to deal with the increasing population, because with an increased population, with increased urbanization, you have more waste, especially, and you would need to have new technologies and develop smart initiatives in dealing with that, among many other ills in terms of, as we are seeing already in Georgetown, the issue with traffic and the road network and so on. So I think, like you guys are saying, smart cities are absolutely necessary in terms of our thinking going forward. So kudos to your answer. All right, so we're winding down. I would like each of you to, in about 1 or 2 minutes, share with the audience what is the single most important piece of advice you would give to real estate investors entering Guyana market today, whether local investors or foreign investors? What is the single most advice that you would give? So I'll start with Shawn.
Well, for the guys who are here, you're here at an international business conference. My advice would be to you, if you're looking for a sector that is booming, that still has potential for continuous growth, continuous development, and is still evolving, I think the real estate sector definitely is the one you should seek to get exposure to. We've gone to lengths to discuss the split between residential and commercial. I think a play in either one is a good investment opportunity for you. But I will also mention that you go in with your eyes wide open, understanding some of the limitations that we have in terms of a still judiciary and a regulatory sector that is catching up. It is a good sector. The banks and other financial institutions are more than welcoming investors to come in, and we're willing to partner with you on that. There is still a lot of growth opportunities in other sectors as well, apart from real estate. But what we're seeing in terms of growth in the various sectors and the exposures, and we look at various sectors, real estate seems to be the one that's leading the charge, apart from, of course, direct exposure to the oil and gas sector.
Stefan?
My advice would be to find a realtor. Well, as a joker in the market, it's important to know that once entering the market, do something real estate-wise. Finding a good realtor helps you across the board. Your real estate agent has relationships with the banks. They have relationships with persons who are looking for JV partnerships. They have relationships with landowners, persons who are looking to expand, who don't have the capital. You may have capital or have, somehow you guys can help each other. A real estate agent is more than a listing agent or someone who is here to help you sell your property. Yeah, so joker for find a real agent.
All right. Mike?
I'm going to tell a Guyanese real estate developer and real estate investor friends, do not let anybody tell you what you cannot do, right? I would say pursue your dreams, you sometimes have to be patient, but never let other people tell you what you can and cannot. For international real estate developers, where are you guys? We're missing the boat. Seriously, I think you guys have a fantastic future ahead of you, and we're happy, hopefully, we're going to be part of this as our team.
All right, thank you very much, Mike. All right, so now I'd like to open the floor for a few questions. You can kindly raise your hands, and someone will bring a mic to you so that you can ask your question. So the floor is open for a few questions.
Price local buyers, renters. Do you have any strategies in mind how we can maintain that balance? Because sometimes we find locals do not have the level of disposable income to purchase some of the homes. Do you have any strategies or any thoughts in mind how you can maintain that balance between locals and the expat population?
Sharon, I thought we were friends and you would give an easy question. But I still think there are affordable opportunities for locals trying to acquire property, especially professionals. The government has a wide range of initiatives in terms of that facilitating home ownership. There is the low-income housing program where you can get loans as cheap as 3.5% per year. Yeah, 3.5% up to equivalent to about $125,000 US to build a home. That complementary with the housing programs of giving out house lots, I still think provides a good opportunity though. There's still a lot of professional schemes being developed and their collaboration with governments. But I think the strategy as a prospective homeowner in Guyana has to be, where do you want to do? And I think we have to appreciate that the market will have different points that you can enter into. The challenge will be if we say in Guyana, you want to hang your hat where your hand can't reach it. You have to be able to match your investment decisions with your income. What your income can afford you should be exactly what you enter into. When we go back to what's happening in the US, and one of the problems in the US right now is that young people can't afford to buy homes. And they've been doing this a longer time than we have, especially with what's happening with interest rates and their political situation. Persons invested into properties with the hope of appreciation. They bought second, third, fourth homes, and that was fundamentally the reason for the 2008 crash that we had. For a Guyanese looking to have a home for your own personal dwelling, bear your income levels in mind, and not just solely rely on capital appreciation. Yeah, at the beginning we were talking about flexibility in lending. There are about 4 or 5 major things we look at any loan proposal. Collateral is just one of them. We look about the character of the borrower, you would have no trouble. We look at your capacity to do the venture that you're talking about. We look at what contribution you have towards it. Saying all that to say, yes, we can have a look. Traditionally, we have done heavy asset and collateral-based lending, but I think banks are evolving. I know from the bank I represent this year, we launched a promotion for car loans where we reduced equity to 5%. 5 years ago in Guyana, that was unheard of. At 5%, and it's been done successfully. So I think the market is evolving on both sides of the equation.
With the bank.
Thank you.
For your question.